Good day, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here with another mad scientist video. Life is persistent, prolific, and perhaps inevitable. Sadly, that swamp wallaby was disturbed while it was eating a wombat berry vine, which I moved here 15 years ago and which I was attempting to fertilise with a dead rabbit. So yeah, life is persistent, but sometimes it's not necessarily obviously coordinated, and sometimes it's not obviously coherent in what it's doing. 15 years I've been nurturing that wombat berry vine, and yeah, a week ago it was looking really good. It was just about to flower and produce some fruit and maybe some seeds. It's dependent on having a particular fungus grow in the soil around its roots, and therefore I dug the thing up like about 1.5 kilometres away and carried it here in a plastic bag and transplanted it. And the local swamp wallabies just like to eat it. One does what one can. However, recently, as I've been clearing Melaleuca to make way for a new shed and a new solar display in order to service the solar recharged electric motorcycle project, because who wants to run your electric motorcycle on petrol? I noticed a remarkable phenomenon. What we have here is about a 1955 vintage Bendix automatic home washer with the original plastic control knobs. We have a water rationer, low 579. We have a water temp, hot and warm. That's got nothing left on it. But here's the thing. Look in there. Do you see what I see? That is a water level. Apparently, in the 15 years that this has been sitting here, when it's been raining, water has gone in through there, which it's stuck. I can't lift it up, but there's water gets in there if this top surface is sufficiently wet for long enough. Ah, yes, look, see, my daughter has spray paint. Isn't that cute? This thing is such an ancient vintage that when it was new, I think my father's wife might have been the first woman in town, maybe the second or third, to have an automatic electric washing machine. It was front loading, and you had to mount it on a 6-inch slab of concrete, right? So you had to go and construct a suspended concrete slab to mount it on, because it shook like a shower of shit, and it just used structural rigidity to hold it still. It was quite remarkable, and as a child, it was on the back veranda. The back veranda was then glassed in, and this thing was still on the back veranda. And when I was the Australian rural regional variety of a latchkey child, the key to the back door of the house used to be inside the washing machine, which was on the back veranda. So from like 1966, 67, yeah, 67, I was 6 years old. That was when I got a bicycle. I would be riding home from school, And if I got home and there was nobody else home, key to our front door was in there. However, what's been going on is for the last 15 years it's been sitting here because, yeah, my mother sold the house at Lawrence Street. And this was the spare Bendix that came from William Street to Lawrence Street when Mum and Dad built the new house in 1976, 77. I think 76 they went to Hong Kong and Japan. 77 they built the new house. So, yeah, this had been on the back veranda, all mounted up, ready to go, so that if the new fancy, shiny Westinghouse General Electrical, whatever it was, failed, this was the backup. Because my father was pretty big on the theory of maintaining a pair and a spare of whatever you had to have. He had a really good one, he had one that still worked, and he could go back to it, and then he had a piece of shit that he was prepared to lend to any dickhead, and he didn't care whether they ever gave it back to him. Right? So this was the spare washing machine when I was a teenager. So, yeah, okay, when my mother was selling the house at Lawrence Street, I just couldn't swallow the idea of it going in the auction sale. And it was still sitting behind the house, and the real estate agent who was selling the house, he says, what are you going to do with that old fireplace, or whatever it is? And it's not a fireplace, you fucking idiot. It's a washing machine. So we have water inlet and outlet. We have electricities going in. We have soap powder. So I'm guessing that means we have potassium and sodium lauryl sulfate and all of the things that you see in soap powder. And they've been going in through that from 1955 to probably 1975 or 76. 20 years of soap powder going in the top. There's going to be a residue on the inside of the pipes. It was sitting there dry from probably 75 to about 2008 or so, 2009, something like that. And then it came here because I just didn't want to throw it out because I'm a pack rat, you know, like, I'm sorry about that. Hillbillies do it. We hang on to shit because we know that if we take it to the dump between a week and a month after we throw it away, that's when we find the need for the bloody thing that we had to throw away, and we can't afford to fucking replace it. So, yeah, I've been hanging on. And then as I was cutting down all these tea trees and moving them away, I realised water has been percolating in under gravity, and the rubber seals from 1955 are so good that we've got a water level. And it wasn't actually quite sterile water that went in there. So therefore, what's gone on is we've got spontaneous generation if you live in the 17th century or the 18th century, but there's been single-celled phytoplankton somewhere in the dust which has been washed in there, and it's using the residual dried washing powder as nutrients, and it's completely sealed. Half the washing machine is full of water. I have no way to drain it unless I try to open the door, and I'm not willing to do that because it's going to make a hell of a mess. And I would like to see how long the Bendix Terrarium is capable of sustaining an almost completely closed biosphere. I don't know how simple the life form is that's in there. If there's anybody who's got university qualifications and they're currently employed with tenure at a university, if they would like to come and sample what there is growing inside the Warble's Bendix Terrarium, yeah, feel free. Come up on my YouTube channel, or, you know, make a few investigations in Glenniness and figure out how to contact me. But I am absolutely fascinated by the fact that 15 years of sitting here and the Bendix washing machine which my father was, at the time when he bought it, he was the only person in the whole town who was sufficiently confident to be able to take the panels off this thing and go in there and use a screwdriver against the springs to adjust the tension on all the cam followers on the single electrically geared down camshaft, which controls all the functions of that thing, because there's not a single bit of electronics in it. It's all electromechanical. It's an automatic front-loading washing machine with no transistors, because it was built and sold in 1955. Right? Now, my personal association with it, why I want it, is because this gave me my first really big lesson in the reality of electricity. Run yourself back to, say, 1964, right? I was 3 years old. I had a double bunk bed in my bedroom. And if you lay on the top bunk of the double bunk bed, there was a bayonet light socket with a switch at the door. And the switch at the door was off because there was no light bulb in the socket. And me, at age 3, I found that if I lay on the top bed and I stuck my finger in the light socket, one pole of the 240 volts was active, the other one was disconnected, and I got a slight sort of tingling, pleasant, pulsing buzz in the fingertips stuck into there. So when people spoke to me about electricity, Dunning-Kruger effect, I did not know what I did not know, led me to feel like, yeah, you don't fucking know what you're talking about. I know all about electricity. You can just stick your finger in the light socket, it doesn't hurt at all. So the old man was having troubles with this thing in 1964 on the back veranda. And he had the top off and he had the side covers off. And he was playing with it, right? And all of its solenoids and contacts and everything were hanging out in the breeze. And he went off to do something and he said, now don't touch it, it's full of electricity. Little fucking genius thought he knew all about electricity. Guess who went up and grabbed a hold of that thing, right? When my head was about this high off the ground. I reached out and embraced this, and it gave me such a shock from both ends of the mechanism. It caused all of my muscles to contract, and I jumped up off the ground and I flew across the bloody back veranda and I hit the wall and I slid down to the ground. I didn't have any blisters. I have no idea why I didn't have any blisters, but it gave me a whole new understanding of electricities and why you have to be really, really respectful of electricities. And I think it's absolutely bloody glorious that in me 60s, as a mangy-looking, toothless, tasteless, bloody zombie recovered from mouth cancer, I can point to this and I can say, look, life is inevitable. Life is persistent. Life will occur wherever it can. Something is living in there on rainwater and residual washing powder and the little bit of light that goes in through that window. That's fucking all you need for life to start up, as long as it's got the little bit of DNA in the bit of phytoplankton on the dust molecule that drifts down and gets washed in the next rainfall. I don't know whether this is a reasonable argument for PanSpermia, the theory that once life occurred anywhere in the universe, even meteor impacts are going to blast some life up into more than an escape velocity, and it will escape and spread out from the first planet in the universe that life occurs on. The Bendix Terrarium suggests to me that we and everything here are the result of the tiniest, weeniest, itsy bitchiest skerrick of viable DNA landing on the planet, filtering in on the cosmic dust and finding itself in even the most vaguely hospitable circumstances. That thing freezes in winter and it probably reaches 40 or 50 degrees inside in summer. But life is persistent and predictably inevitable. If life can exist, it will exist. And the universe is predisposed to make it possible for life to exist. So, sorry about that, all you ethalists. You're never going to wipe out all life in the universe. You're just going to have to learn to behave to not cause anybody else to suffer, rather than removing all sentient beings in order to make sure that nobody is capable of perceiving suffering in their existence. Yeah, this is my belief anyway. Terrarium. Who would have thought? I have no idea how many species of algae or phytoplankton or mold or whatever it is that's growing in there, but something is living there in that puddle of sun-heated water. How long it's going to live for, nobody knows. Now, what do we got? Bendix Home Appliances Limited, London, Birmingham model. D, capacity 9 pounds of dry clothes, covered by one or more of the following United States letters patent and a British patent, other patents pending. There is another number printed there. What do we got? Well, the last figures are 250 volts, 50 cycles. So I'm going to suggest that tells you how much electricity it uses. But from family history, yeah, I think it's about a 1956 Bendix. Black neutral, green earth. And yeah, it does still have the drive belt in situ. Who knew? One can, in fact, passively conduct a passive experiment into PanSpermia with a derelict washing machine that's been made so well that 70 years after being built, the bloody rubbers still hold water. But, you know, they just don't make shit like they used to. Warbles on like the YouTube. Ciao.